Welcome to part 2 of my conversation with Marla Grant. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, I encourage you to start there. Please remember to subscribe, like, comment, and share. This is a deeply meaningful and potentially life-changing conversation, and I hope you will share it with others who may need it. Thank you. And remember, no matter where we are in life, we have the power to be a light to ourselves and to others.
And I had something happen to me about a week ago. Something happened with a restaurant that I go to all the time. This is just a weird little story, but I surprised myself. I uncharacteristically got really annoyed by what had happened. And looking back on it, it wasn't that big a deal. And by the way, I think it was the day that we attacked Iran. So there was a whole lot of other stuff going on. But oddly, I think that there was a connection there because when we allow ourselves to get all upset about this thing over here, it doesn't live by itself. It filters into every other part of your life. And I was off balance. I was off my energetic balance of presence and understanding what was going on. And because I was in that state, I let this thing bother me. Now, fortunately, I didn't take any really bad actions or anything, but I realized at the end of the day, I was like, why did that bother you so much? And I realized, we don't live in a vacuum. There's things going on everywhere, and they have an impact on us. So we have to guard our internal state really carefully. It's really important that we do that.
Yeah, you mentioned that also used this example. You talked about 3 steps. First is catch the thoughts, like
Yes.
the awareness. Then you said the PQ reps.
Yes.
How to spell PQ?
Yeah, so let me explain what a PQ rep is. So
Yeah.
PQ is kind of positive intelligence shorthand for the ratio between the amount of time that you spend in your sage mind, which is the helpful part of your mind, and the time that you spend letting your saboteurs run away with you. And so there's a tipping point of 75%. If you are spending 75% or more of your time in your sage mind, that beautiful, helpful part of you that feels much more stable, is calm, is able to think clearly. There's a saying that there is no wisdom in chaos, and that is so true. And that's why we want to always be operating from our sage mind, because the sage mind is where there's a complete lack of chaos. You can think clearly, you can make better assessments of what is going on. So these PQ reps are little things like, here's one that I really love to do because my fingers are a little bit sensitive. You can just drag the fingers of one hand over the finger and palms of your other hand. And the whole idea of a PQ rep is to be 100% focused on the physical. So you're letting your thoughts go, and you can do it with touch, you can do it with sight, you can do it with sound, like listening to the furthest sound away, listening to the sound that's closest. You can also do it with your breath. You can there's one I really like. It's called breathing with anchor. You breathe, and every time you have a thought that comes in, you label it. You label what the thought was. Like you're just trying to have your breathing, you're focusing on your breath. You're not focusing on nothing, you're focusing on your breath. And then you happen to have a thing, a thought, what am I going to have for dinner tonight? You label that thought, and then you go back to your breath. All of these encourage, and this is, you can actually see this on an MRI over time, that neural pathway to your sage mind gets stronger and stronger. And I know this works because I have a lot of anecdotal evidence about it, not just with me, but with my clients as well. Yeah, and here's the really beautiful thing about it. if after you've done it for a while and it becomes these PQ reps become a habit, it just when something happens, your sage mind automatically takes over. So about a year ago, maybe a little longer, I'd been doing this program for a long time, and I did something really silly. I pulled up to an intersection, and I was in too much of a hurry, and I was trying to go straight across the street, but the traffic was blocking me. The traffic was going one way. It was completely at a standstill one way, and I was trying to edge out into the road and peek around and see if anybody was coming. And I didn't see anybody, and I thought, oh well, I'll just go. There's nobody coming. Bad idea. So I took off, and sure enough, there was somebody coming. But you know what? I literally, I mean, in the old days, I would have been, oh my God, how am I going to pay my deductible? And is that person hurt? And look what I've done. I'm so stupid. There was none of that. I was like, oh, that just happened. And I literally got out of my car, and I was not agitated. I was not, I apologized. I immediately it was my fault. She hardly had any damage, but one of her tires was blown out or something, but I did take off the front of my car. But I was so calm. I even walked 2 blocks back to my house and got us some water. And here's the other great thing. When we are calm, we keep other people calm. She didn't come at me like, oh my God, you're so stupid. What did you do? She was also very calm. And there's this thing, and this is a phenomenon that is understood. It's called by science. There's these things called mirror neurons.
Yeah.
And whatever we are projecting tends to be what we get back. So if we are projecting calm and kindness and empathy and being in that space, and it even can happen in the middle of an argument. It's like a freight train. If two freight trains are coming together and they meet with all that energy and explosive power, then everything goes crazy. But if we meet in a calm state, it diffuses everything. This can happen right in the middle of an argument. I've had that happen as well. I sure do wish I had known all these principles in earlier days of my life. I can think of times it would have been really handy. But yeah, that car accident was really.
That's a great example.
It was when I knew this stuff is really working. And I had probably been doing it maybe for 2 years by then. But it becomes a regular part of your life. And it just automatically happens because that's where your brain goes, instead of your brain going to these chaotic thoughts and constant worry or hypervigilance or catastrophizing about what's going to happen next. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing work. I'm so glad I found it, because I now, when I have a new client, I just bundle those two together. I make sure that they get to do both of them, because both of those programs, they really cannot replace each other. I feel like the positive intelligence work cannot do what grief recovery method does, and grief recovery method does not take things as far as positive intelligence does. They're really for different things. But I can't think of anything better than positive intelligence as a practice to have, especially these days, because every day there's something else that's triggering us. There's something else that we want to judge. There's something else that fills us with stress and anxiety. And we don't want to be in that place, because when we can't make good decisions, and we can't act with empathy and kindness. And it's I'll admit it's a juggling act, because there's always the master judge is always sitting there saying that person should be crucified for doing that. This person's bad, that person's bad. And it can keep you in this state of mental chaos. So, we each have to decide how we're going to react, and whether reacting means doing nothing, staying in a complete state of calm and removing ourselves, or maybe to some people like me, I tend to be a person who feels like, love and kindness that's an action verb. So while I'm not going to be verbally attacking people, I am going to be saying the things I feel that need to be said. But not in a, not full of retribution, because that's not, I really tend to, again, I can't stress this enough. It's going back to that acceptance piece. There's so much we can't change.
Yeah.
The one thing we have control of is ourselves. We always have control about what's going on in our minds and what we're going to allow to come to the forefront, and the choices that we make. That's kind of our superpower in everything. We can This is another wonderful principle from positive intelligence, is that every event or circumstance comes with a gift or opportunity. And
Mm.
I've seen that play out so many times. I could never have imagined that the deaths of my children and having to go through this really difficult and often dangerous marriage would have had gifts, but it absolutely did. And it's our job to be open to finding those. Um, yeah, even my I don't talk as much about my marriage as I did about the children I lost, because people are more it just has been more part of my work, because I started a lot of my work with parents who had a child that died. But I mean, I could say a lot of horrible things about my ex-husband, and he did stress us out a lot, but there were so many good things that came into my life because of him. I saw the world because of him. I had wonderful children because of him. One of the greatest gifts is that I learned so much about myself, what I was capable of, the courage I could have, the confidence that it gave me. It gave me a very strong sense of self. And here's the other thing that it developed in me. It made me look deeper into why he was the way he was, and to feel empathy. And I know that he came from a very, very difficult life. And there's a wonderful exercise in positive intelligence close to the beginning of the training that has to do with empathy. And we first learn to think of ourselves as we were when we were small little children, and realize how perfect we were, and that we were our little essential selves when we came into this world, and that it's just everything that piles on top of us that changes that. But we are then encouraged to use that for other people, and I did that, and I used that on him, and I imagined him as, I know he was a very cute little blonde-headed boy when he was little, so I imagined him. And this just happened not very long ago, maybe 6 months ago. For some reason, this image of him popped up in my head, and I was thinking of him standing in the midst of the chaos that was going on for him when he was little. He had no love and support. His mother was a very cold person. His dad had serious alcohol problems. He never had a chance. I don't think he ever got the affirmation that he needed. And so none of us, unless we choose to do the work we need to do, none of us escapes unresolved grief from our childhood. It's Grief is cumulative, and it's cumulatively negative. And if we don't deal with it, it ruins our health, our mental health, our physical health. It trashes relationships. It gives us problems in our professional life. It creates all kinds of havoc. So, we have to make the decision that we're going to look at the hard parts. We're going to do it. It may not be the grief recovery method, but if we're not willing to take a good hard look at ourselves and the decisions that we've made, and also realize that, yes, we had a tough life. It was awful, but I need to forgive that. I need to forgive the people that did that to me, because when we drop the resentment and the anger, oh my gosh, that's such a gift to us. We can't, it's like lead weights, or it's like, imagine you carry all that stuff in a backpack, and every time something bad happens, you put it in the backpack, and it just weighs you down.
Mhm.
I remember Wayne Dyer. Was listening to him in a conference one time, and he used a great analogy. He said, it's like you're carrying a bag full of shit. And every once in a while you stop and you just reach your hand in there and spread it all over yourself. He said, just drop the bag. And that's exactly
Mm,
what we need to do. We need to get rid of it.
mm,
You can also liken that to a tea kettle with a stopper in it. It's going to get hotter and hotter and hotter until it one day explodes. And I've seen that happen. That happened with my former husband. But you can
mm,
get to a point where you have empathy for somebody, and you can
yeah,
it doesn't mean that you condone what happened. Nobody gets a pass for the bad things that they did, but you still need to be able to forgive, or at least acknowledge that, yes, that bad thing happened, and I'm going to let it go because I don't want that to ruin my life anymore. I don't want to carry that weight of that resentment. So this is hard work that we each have to do, but the rewards are amazing. And I know my sons suffered from, some of the same things that I did, and they both had their sort of dark night of the soul and did the work they needed to do. And I'm so proud of them. They're both doing extremely well. One of them is actually helping other men. And
oh,
yeah, yeah. So this is why I tell people you have a superpower. Your superpower is choice. You get to decide. You
yeah,
can either, you can either take this path or you can decide to do that. And we need support along the way, we have
yeah.
to find what helps us. I mean, I certainly had people help me along the way. And then of course these two programs were instrumental in helping me learn even more and become even more peaceful in my life.
Wow, thank you so much. I was afraid to interrupt you.
Oh,
Such
sorry.
great, no, such great insights, especially the last part. You added the relationship experience with your ex-husband and what you learned from it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it's very helpful, practical, because not everyone will lose a child, but everyone
Yes.
will get into some difficulties of dealing with, like in a critic or in a bad relationship or
Yes.
communication. You will have bad days. Even
Oh,
as someone like me, like I can find everything so satisfying very easily. However, I have bad days too.
sure.
What you shared is just so incredibly helpful. I'm sure many people will find
I
so
hope
valuable.
so.
Yeah,
I hope so because, I want people to know that they have agency. If you help, and I see this especially on the when I'm helping people on the crisis line, because so many young people and even adults, but I mostly deal with younger people. When they call in, they feel like everything outside of them is controlling their life, and they don't know how to take hold of that. But there are absolutely things they can do. And the more, of course, people are going to feel out of control and like their situation is hopeless. And that's what people need. They need a sense of control. Like
mhm,
they do have power over what happens next.
mhm,
So, you know, if I can encourage someone to understand how they can get to that place where they can make small decisions to, have agency over their own life and what's happening. We always 100% of the time have control over what we decide how we're going to manage our emotions.
yeah,
So just even knowing that is super helpful.
yeah. I totally agree. When you realize that whether you stay or you move or whatever the action you take, that's your choice.
Yeah, 100%,
That's a
100%.
privilege. Once you
Yeah.
know that,
Yes.
that's your choice, then you are in control. I
Yes. And
totally agree.
I stayed with my husband we lived overseas for about 15 years of our 27-year marriage, but
Mm,
I stayed with him for several years after that because it literally wasn't. I was calculating when it would be safe to leave, and he had actually said he thought about killing me. So
Wow.
I knew how to keep everything afloat.
Yeah.
uh I had some bad situations that happened, but um I did, I did, and I know that people were judging me for why I was still there, but I knew what I needed to do to keep
Hmm.
myself safe and my kids safe. And
Yeah.
so when the time was right, I did leave him. And
Hmm.
I left in a lot of debt, but it was such a relief to be gone. And and I don't want to give the impression that this ability to have empathy and figure everything out comes at, oh, no, no. It was many years after I left him that, I mean, I did know how he was suffering. I did feel bad that he had become an alcoholic. I mean, he actually was when I met him, but I was so inexperienced at life, I didn't even recognize that.
Hmm.
So that right there is something I had to own. And I do feel like there was there was some fate involved in me being with him, because I feel like it was, um again, it was the training ground for what I was meant to do. I couldn't teach people about this. I couldn't even relate to what people are going through unless I'd been through it. So, and oh my gosh, the things I learned about myself because of that. So I can now look, it took me many, many years and even several years after my divorce to be able to have any kind of benevolent feelings about him. And ironically, I am now his power of attorney, and
Wow.
he is, he's in an assisted living facility. So
Hmm.
and his sons, I'm so proud of them. They have helped along the way to make sure he's okay. He has a life now and he's happy there, and he has friends, and that's all that's important. He
Yeah.
served his purpose with us, and we want to make sure he's safe and taken care of health-wise, which he is. And so that's what, I think that's the best that you can do.
Yeah. Wow. Appreciate all your personal experience and how you went through and being vulnerable to reflect on the choices that you made, whether stayed in the marriage that from the outside world, probably they thought
Oh,
that you were crazy.
yeah.
However, you made the best judgment that you could. And
Yes, for
I,
sure.
I loved that, as you said, you really found you gained something that you may not gain if you didn't go through that journey. That's all
Yeah,
actually we needed to see the past.
for sure. This is one of the reasons why being radically honest with yourself is so important. I could not have fully healed from that experience unless I had gone a step further. And here's the other thing. I know that there were times when I probably made him feel less than, because I was in so much pain myself. I'm sure I was not very nice to him. I have to admit that. That's my failing. You know, at the same time, I understand why I would have been frustrated and angry and maybe not treating him very well. But it did nothing to reinforce the way any good feelings he might have felt about himself.
Mm.
So, we just have to be super honest about everything that comes our way. And that's a concept in both the grief recovery work and in positive intelligence. You can lie to anybody about what's going on in your mind, or what you're thinking or feeling, or your life. You can lie to everybody. You can put on this facade.
Mm.
What you can't do is lie to yourself. I don't care if you pretend till the cows come home. It's going to be eating you alive until you face it in full honesty and awareness and deal with it. That's
Yeah.
why it's so helpful to have somebody sort of guide you through this. And I tell people, I'm not here. I can't make this better for you. I'm not here to fix you. You don't need fixing, you're perfect the way you are. But I kind of refer to myself as a guide. I know the way, but I can't do the work for you. You
Mhm.
absolutely have to do it for yourself. And sometimes people aren't willing to do it. It doesn't happen very often, but I've had that happen. It's too hard to take the steps you need to take, but man, the ones that do, I literally can see. It's just like the best thing. I can see, even though I do this on Zoom,
Mm.
I can see the difference between when they have come to me and they have a cloud over them. I can just see their image is just one of, anxiety and depression and self-judgment. And when they finally get it, literally their face lights up, everything changes. I've even had people tell me that people at work will say to them, "Oh my gosh, you look so good. What's going on? What's changed?" And it's because, oh, I'm doing this work. It's really helping me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mental
it's
stress. Yeah, mental stress is truly weighing, yeah,
yes.
the person down for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Uh,
really does. And it's so rewarding to see that change and to know that, you know, they've done it themselves. I said, "Okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to talk about today. This is what you need to do." And just help them, encourage them. I mean, you know, I try to over deliver in everything I do. I make myself available to them. People can connect with me by text
mm,
or, voicemail or email, and we'll jump on a call between our sessions if they need to. I have one goal in my work, and that's to help people get from A to Z in a healthy way. And then just, with positive intelligence, just to help them learn how to make that part of their life. Yeah, I take them through like a 12-week program, and then by that time, seven of the 12 weeks is teaching them the foundation work, and then they get to do what we call applications. They get to take it and apply it to real world situations that they want to use it for. And then once they do that, they can pretty much fly on their own. They get it. Okay, this is
that's
so helpful.
that's amazing. Yeah, definitely I will share your contact info.
Sure.
I can talk about this topic and about grief recovering or uh, positive intelligence on and on forever. To be honest, I'm so drawn to all the stories, your experience, your knowledge that you shared. However, we have to wrap up soon. So,
Sure.
yeah,
I can blab forever.
no, they are so valuable. On this podcast, they be a light with Mushan. So being a light for ourselves and for others is a big purpose of this podcast. How do you see be a light in the world that you're practicing, like helping others?
I was thinking about that. It's a really, really relevant question right now because it's so tempting. It's so tempting to go to the dark side or to get drawn into the dark side. I don't, that's certainly not who you are. It's not, I know it's not who I am. So I think that looks different for everyone. One of the things I think that's so important is to make it a habit to approach people with that in your heart, you know. And by the way, I noticed early on I'll just tell you this one thing really quick. But around the time when I first got divorced, I was still pretty young. I consider it young 'cause based on how old I am now, but I was 48 at the time. And I was still kind of casting outside myself for, maybe I can have another relationship. Maybe I can, maybe love is out there. Real love is out there. And I got a very, very clear message one day. I had a lot of sort of spiritual metaphysical events around that because I was praying a lot, but I was not praying for to get a particular thing. I was praying for um yeah, I said if I have to go through all this stuff, please just let me learn what I need to learn. And almost immediately I get this message that you don't need to find love anywhere else because you are love. You have all the love you need inside you. And so I thought, oh, that's really interesting. So I began a practice of whenever I would meet someone, trying to energetically extend that feeling of love. And what a difference it made. You know, I was talking about mirror neurons. It was almost like people could feel that. People would come and talk to me, come visit me that had never stopped by my desk before. And it's amazing. So it's really being a light is a state of mind. It's not that you have to do overt acts of kindness. It just has to be part of who you are and what you want to present to the world. Now that does not mean that you cannot say and do the things that need to be done. You know, I don't want people to think that they, you know, shouldn't take action steps that they need to take, but all those things can be done in a sense of wanting to help and wanting to move things forward. Um, but yeah, it's really an energetic thing in your heart. I try to make it a point to find something pleasant to say or nice to say, genuine when I meet people. And boy, it can really make their day sometimes. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So it's like self-love and finding the inner
yes,
strength and love in yourself is
that's the
something,
first step.
the first step.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
because you can't
Awesome.
give what you don't have. There's a saying, you
That's
can't
true.
pour from an empty cup. It's
Yeah.
that kind of concept for sure.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for everything that you shared
You are
with me
so
and with
welcome.
the audience.
Thank you
To
for
be honest,
asking me to be here.
yeah, you're welcome. And I'm actually going to make this episode in two parts
Okay.
because I want to save everything. It's
Okay.
truly amazing because for example, I even never realized that the grief actually is not just about losing somebody. Actually, it's something we lost maybe in the past. Maybe we'll never get the
100%.
kind of love we had, or
Oh, for
what kind of
sure.
attention, or what kind of resources we didn't have. Perhaps now I have a little
Yes.
bit of deeper understanding about myself, my husband, and the people around me even more
I
because
think,
of your
yeah,
sharing. Yeah.
thank you. That's very true. Those are called intangible grief events.
Mm,
Rather than a tangible one like, you know, the loss of a loved one, intangible ones are all the things you're talking about.
yeah.
Losing things that were meaningful to you or not having things that you deserve to have like as a child. So,
Mm,
yeah,
yeah.
those are just as deep, can be every bit as deep for sure.
Yeah. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. As we wrap up, do you have any last parting words to share?
You know, speaking to an individual out there, you are the key to everything. Nothing nothing can change unless it changes, you know, in your heart. We have to we have to pay attention to that first. We can't have an effect on the world unless we're first taking care of what's internal. And that's where everything comes from. So, and you have that in you. It's an innate part of you. You have that wisdom. I tell people you know, no one out there, I don't care what their title, I don't care how famous they are, what kind of, you know, big organization they have, you have just as much wisdom as they do. So believe in yourself and believe in your own intuition.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your such insightful sharing
Thank
from
you.
such a personal level. And for our audience, after you watching this episode, please contact Marla if you need any support and also share it with your loved ones.
I always offer people a free discovery session just to, you know, let me know what's going on with you. And, you know, it's a good opportunity to see if we're a good fit to work together and to ask questions about what I teach. So yeah, and I have testimonials on my website if that would be of interest as well. So that's a good place
That's
to go.
great. I love that you found your calling, and I mean it. The price was high, but you found
Yeah,
this
yeah, for
calling.
sure.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
so much.
you're so welcome.
I think all of us who heard your story, your experience, is truly taking advantage for your years of learning through such profound loss. And And we are grateful for your generosity and kindness and the positive light that you are shining on everyone. Thank you, Marla.
It was a privilege to share. Thank you so much.
Thank you, audience. See you next time. And please remember to subscribe, like, and share and comment. Thank you. Bye.